There is a mountain range in the Texas desert that exists nowhere else on Earth, and it holds a forest that should not be here at all. Pines, oaks, junipers, cool shade more than a mile above sea level, surrounded on every side by hundreds of miles of thorn and stone and heat. The trail we are climbing is named for a mine that has never been found, and it leads into one of the strangest and most beautiful places in North America. This is the Lost Mine Trail in the Chisos Mountains, inside Big Bend National Park, in the far southwest corner of Texas. The park sits in the great curve of the Rio Grande, the river that bends north here before turning southeast again, and gives the region its name. On the other bank is Mexico. The nearest city of any size is hours away. This is one of the most remote corners of the lower 48 states, and that remoteness has protected everything you are about to see. The trail begins at Panther Pass, at mile 5 of the Chisos Basin Road, at roughly 5,700 feet. From there it climbs about 2.4 miles to a ridge, so 4.8 miles round trip, gaining somewhere near 1,100 feet. The Park Service calls it moderate. Most people take about 3 hours. The first mile is a steady grade to a saddle. After that it steepens into switchbacks, and the desert falls away below in long blue layers. To understand this place, start with water. For long stretches of the Cretaceous, more than 100 million years ago, a warm, shallow sea covered this country. Lime mud settled on its floor, thickened and hardened into limestone, and the sand of its shorelines became sandstone. That is the foundation of Big Bend. The pale cliffs and canyon walls further out in the park are the compacted remains of a seabed, lifted and tilted and carved, and full of the shells of animals that died in shallow water. So the ground here is a stack. Down at the bottom, ocean. Above it, something violent. The rock underfoot on this trail is not seabed at all. It is fire rock. Ash, lava, welded tough, the hardened breath of volcanoes. The Chisos are the eroded bones of a volcanic landscape, and every step of this climb is a step through the layers of eruptions that happened long after the sea was gone, when this corner of the continent tore itself open and burned. The volcanic era in Big Bend ran through the late Eocene and into the Oligocene. Geologists date the rocks of the Chisos Formation, the lower volcanic pile, to roughly 33 to 45 million years ago. Lava flowed. Ash fell in blankets deep enough to bury forests. Molten rock pushed up beneath the surface and hardened into intrusions that later erosion exposed. What we walk on is not one volcano, but the wreckage of a long, restless chapter of eruption after eruption. Then came something larger. Beneath the high Chisos sits the Pine Canyon caldera, the collapsed scar of an enormous magma chamber. It erupted the ash flows of the South Rim Formation around 32 million years ago, and when the chamber emptied, the roof sagged and dropped into the void it left behind. The high country of this park is essentially the ruin of that caldera. The famous rim, the peaks, the sheer gray towers, are what erosion has left of a volcanic collapse. And there it is. That blunt fortress of rock above the trail is Casa Grande, the big house, one of the signature shapes of the park. It is not a mountain that grew. It is a mountain that survived, a mass of hard volcanic rock left standing while everything softer around it washed away. From the saddle on this trail, you can look straight into Juniper Canyon and out across the Chisos Basin and see the whole architecture of that collapse laid open. The rocks below these mountains have given up something extraordinary. In 1971, a University of Texas graduate student named Douglas Lawson found an enormous hollow bone in an arroyo in the western part of this park. It belonged to a pterosaur, later named Quetzalcoatlus, with a wingspan estimated near 11 or 12 meters. It is the largest flying animal ever known. It hunted this country when this country was a floodplain, and its bones came out of the Big Bend dirt. Everything you can see from this trail was shaped by removal. There was far more rock here once. Rain, flash flood, freeze and thaw, and the patient work of the Rio Grande have hauled entire mountains away, grain by grain, and left the hard cores standing. It is a landscape defined by absence. The desert below is the floor of an excavation, and the peaks around us are simply the parts that the water has not managed to carry off yet. Now the story changes from rock to climate. Around 20,000 years ago, during the last glacial period, this region was not desert. It was cooler and wetter, and woodland spread across country that is now creosote and cactus. Pines and oaks grew down on the flats. Then the ice retreated, the world warmed, and the woodland began to die back. It survived only where it could stay cool, and the only place to stay cool out here was up. Which is why we are walking under trees. As the lowlands dried and heated, the forest climbed the mountains, retreating uphill until it ran out of mountain. What is left in the Chisos is a relict, a marooned fragment of an older, colder world. These pinyon pines, these oaks and junipers, are the descendants of a woodland that once had room to roam. Now it is stranded up here on an island, and the sea around it is desert. Ecologists call this a sky island. It is a real and precise idea. An isolated mountain range rises high enough to hold a cooler, wetter world at its summit, and the desert around it becomes a barrier as absolute as ocean. Species stranded on one sky island cannot easily reach the next. The Chisos are the southernmost of the sky islands of this region, and they rise nearly a mile above the Chihuahuan desert floor across roughly 40 square miles. There is something else unusual about these mountains. The Chisos are the only mountain range in the United States that lies entirely within a single national park. Every peak, every canyon, every acre of that stranded forest sits inside one protected boundary. That is an accident of where the lines were drawn, but it is a lucky accident. It means this island has a single set of rules, and one of the strangest ecosystems in the country has been kept whole. It is mid-January. In most of North America, that would mean snow and short gray afternoons. Here it means clear, cold mornings that soften into perfect walking weather, thin, bright light, and air so dry the distances play tricks on you. Winter is when this country is kindest. In summer, the desert below can be lethal. Right now, the high country is quiet, the trail is generous, and the horizon is sharp enough to count ridgelines 100 miles away. People have lived in this landscape for thousands of years. The mountains carry the name of the Chisos, sometimes written Chiso, an indigenous people of this desert who were here when the Spanish arrived, and who were largely broken apart by colonial slave raiding, disease, and displacement. The origin of the word Chisos is genuinely disputed. Romantic explanations translate it as ghost or enchantment, but historians think the mountains were almost certainly simply named for the people who lived among them. It is easy to look at this country and think of it as empty. It never was. Desert life turns on knowledge, and knowledge of where the water is, springs, seeps, tanajas, the rock basins that hold rain for weeks after a storm. The high country was a resource, cooler and richer than the flats, with acorns and pinyon nuts and game. The people who lived here were not surviving at the margin. They knew this place with a precision we do not. By the 1700s and 1800s, the map of power had shifted. The Mescalero Apache moved into the region and were in turn pushed by the Comanche, whose reach across the southern plains was formidable. The Comanche Trail, actually a braided network of routes running water to water, crossed this country on the way to the Rio Grande and into northern Mexico. Part of the main route runs through what is now the park, leaving north through Persimmon Gap. The great southbound expeditions rode in autumn, in the season sometimes called the Comanche Moon, when the light was good and the horses could travel. In places the trail was trampled nearly a mile wide. Stand on this ridge and look north, and you can see the gaps in the ranges that made those routes possible. These were not wanderings. They were logistics, planned around grass and water, run by a nation that dominated this region for a century. Which brings us to the name of this trail. The story goes that Spanish colonists found a rich silver mine somewhere in these mountains and forced local Chisos people to work it. The story goes that the workers rose up, killed the Spanish, and sealed the mine so completely that it has never been found. It is a good story. It is also, as far as anyone can demonstrate, folklore. It should be told as folklore and not as history. Here is the honest part. Prospectors have combed these mountains. Geologists have mapped them. Nobody has ever produced the mine, and the volcanic rock of the high Chisos is not the sort of ground that typically hides a bonanza silver deposit. What the legend really preserves is something true underneath it. Colonial mining in this region did run on forced indigenous labor, and that violence was real, even if this particular tunnel with its sealed door never existed. The modern chapter is short and hard. In the 1800s, settlers found workable floodplain along the Rio Grande, and farming and stock raising followed. Mexican settlement in the Big Bend country grew around the turn of the 20th century, and Anglo-American ranching expanded in the 1920s. Cattle, goats, and sheep grazed this country heavily. Candelilla wax was rendered in desert camps. Mercury was mined at Terlingua. It was a working landscape, and it was worked hard. You can still read that on the land. Overgrazing stripped grass from slopes that have never fully recovered, and when the grass went, the soil went with it in the storms. Some of what looks like ancient pure desert down there is partly a wound. The park has had 80 years to heal, which sounds like a long time and is, in a human life, nothing. Grasslands here recover on a timescale measured in centuries, not seasons. Then came the New Deal. Between 1934 and 1942, the Civilian Conservation Corps worked in these mountains. Several hundred young men, most of them Hispanic, camped in the shadow of Casa Grande and built the road into the Chisos Basin with picks, shovels, rakes, and a single dump truck. They blasted and hauled thousands of truckloads of rock to cut the root-up Green Gulch. They also built stone and adobe cottages that still stand. And they built this. The Lost Mine Trail is CCC work. The grade under our feet, the way it eases up the slope and turns just where the mountain lets it turn, is not natural. It was surveyed and cut by hand by young men in the 1930s who had almost nothing to work with. Nearly a century later, the line they chose is still the right line, and thousands of people a year walk it without ever knowing. Texas did something unusual. The state acquired the land and deeded it to the federal government in 1943, and Big Bend National Park was formally established on the 12th of June, 1944. It opened for visitors that July. Park headquarters moved into the old CCC barracks in the basin. It is the only major national park that a state assembled and handed over. Texas, in effect, gave this range to the country. What that transfer saved is easy to underrate. Not just scenery, an entire isolated ecosystem whole with its mountains and its desert and its river all inside one boundary. Over 800,000 acres. If the Chisos had been carved up between ranches and mining claims, the Sky Island would have been fragmented, and a marooned forest cannot survive fragmentation. It has nowhere to retreat to. It is already at the top of the only mountain it has. Along the southern edge runs the Rio Grande, called the Rio Bravo del Norte on the Mexican side, and it is both the border and the sculptor. Where the river meets uplifted limestone, it has cut straight through, and the most famous of those cuts is Santa Elena Canyon, a sheer slot with walls rising roughly 1,500 feet from the water. The river is on the American side and the Mexican side simultaneously, which is to say it is neither. From up here, the border is invisible. There is no line in the rock. The mountains keep going, the desert keeps going, and the animals cross constantly because nothing out here has read the treaty. The Chihuahuan Desert is one ecosystem that happens to have a political boundary drawn across it. Standing on this ridge, that fact stops being an abstraction. You are looking at another country, and it is plainly, obviously, the same country. Mexico protects its half. Across the river lie the flora and fauna protection areas of Maderas del Carmen and Cañón de Santa Elena, both established in 1994, along with Acampo and the Rio Bravo del Norte Natural Monument. Together with Big Bend, the Rio Grande Wild and Scenic River, and Big Bend Ranch State Park, they form one of the largest conservation complexes in North America. It is binational by geography, and increasingly binational by intention. From the end of this trail on a clear day, you look east over Pine Canyon and out to the Sierra del Carmen, the great wall of limestone in Coahuila that catches the last light and turns the color of a coal. Those mountains are the Chisos twin. Another sky island, another marooned forest, close enough to see and far enough away to be its own world. And something once made the crossing between them. Black bears were essentially wiped out of these mountains, and then on their own they came back. In the late 1980s, a female bear left the Sierra del Carmen, walked down out of the Mexican mountains, crossed miles of open desert, swam the Rio Grande, crossed more desert, and climbed into the Chisos. By the mid-1990s, a breeding population was reestablished here. Nobody reintroduced them. They found the island again by themselves. So this is bear country now, restored by the bears. It is also lion country. Mountain lions hunt these slopes, and the park asks you to keep children close and to stand your ground rather than run. In 80 years, the Chisos have gone from a grazed and hunted range to a functioning mountain ecosystem with its predators intact. That is not a small thing. Most places that lose their large animals never get them back. There is a small gray and yellow bird that nests in these oak and pinyon woodlands, and in the entire United States it breeds nowhere else. The Colima Warbler. Its world is northeastern Mexico, and the Chisos are the northern tip of that world, the one place it spills across the border. Birders travel from across the country and climb into these mountains for a glimpse of it. It is the sky island made flesh and feather. And then night falls. Big Bend has some of the darkest skies of any national park in the lower 48, so little light pollution that the Milky Way throws shadows. It was certified as a gold-tier dark sky park in 2012, and it sits within the Greater Big Bend International Dark Sky Reserve, which spans millions of acres across the border and is the largest such reserve in the world. Darkness, out here, is a protected resource. Coming down is when it settles. The mine that names this trail probably never existed. But the trail was still worth building, and the men who built it were paid in meals and a few dollars a month during the worst economy the country has known. And what they cut a path into turned out to be a fragment of the Ice Age, still holding on, a mile above a desert, in the last place anyone would look for it. Islands are fragile. The forest up here cannot move. It has already climbed as high as this mountain goes, and if the climate keeps warming, it has no further retreat. Researchers watching the pinyon pines of the Chisos have seen die-offs, and they are asking hard questions about how long this woodland has, which makes standing under these trees feel less like sightseeing and more like witnessing. This forest has been holding its ground for 20,000 years. So that is the Lost Mine Trail, 4.8 miles through a volcano, up an island, into a forest the Ice Age left behind, in a range that belongs entirely to one park, on a border that the bears ignore. No silver, something better. If you ever get the chance to stand on that ridge and look across at Mexico, take it. Thank you for watching. Follow for more trails of the world.